question that came in bright and early this morning. Hi, Shannon and Dr. Doreen. My 5-year-old son climbs into my bed every night. I take him back right away and lay with him until he falls back asleep. Then I go to my bed. Like 2 hours later, he comes back to my bed and I take him back to his bed, lay with him, and go back to mine after he falls asleep. But hours later, he's back in my bed, and it's a cycle throughout the night. In the morning, we're both so tired. He's scared of the dark. Before going to bed, he tells me, turn the TV on. I do. Then he falls asleep. Then I turn it off. The room is really dark. Then we go to bed. We're in the same room, but in different beds. He does not have a problem staying asleep the whole night if he's on my bed. So I know that it's not that he can't stay asleep. I was thinking about a nightlight, but what if that wakes him up? Can you please tell me how I can help him with being scared of the dark and staying asleep in his own bed and not come into mine? And thank you so much for sending you air hugs.
Yes, one of the most difficult things is waking up continuously. It truly is. So, you know, I'll give you the answer to this, obviously, but I just want people to start thinking kind of the same way I do in terms of developing little task analyses and shaping schedules, because that answers almost every problem that we have. If you do it very slowly and gradually and in small, minute segments, it's possible to do. So we have two problems here. One is he doesn't stay in his own room, and the other is we're concerned about him. Like, we feel he might need TV to fall asleep, and we don't know if nightlight will keep him up as well. So we feel like he needs something so that would avert his fear of darkness, if that exists. And you can never really be sure if there's a fear of dark. It could also be just, you know, he's not accustomed to being alone. He's not accustomed to being in the dark, and he feels like it's an unknown for him. So regardless, let's for a moment first deal with the issue of staying in his own room. So currently, you always want to list, this is what you want to do. You always want to get your baseline. Your baseline is where you are at this moment. So at this moment, you've described where you are. He continuously comes to your room, you take him back, all this sort of stuff. Where you want to be in a place where he goes to sleep and stays in his room. So that's your goal. Now let's go from where we are to the goal in increments. Okay, so the first step could be you put a bed in his room and you stay there the whole night. So what we're doing now is we're teaching him to sleep in his room with you present. Okay? We've now eliminated your room. So that's step one. That's a good step to accomplish. He's no longer coming to your room. He's staying in his room. However, the conditions of the room are different. He's staying in his room as long as you're there. Okay, that's fine. You get that accomplished. That'll take, he probably will stay in his room because he'll wake up and see you there on a separate bed, and then he'll stay. If he doesn't, we know we have an additional problem, which is he wants you to be in his bed. Okay. That's an additional problem, in which case we could go to that. Doesn't really matter. Let's assume we're there. Let's assume you stay. Let's assume he has a bigger bed and you're right next to him. That would be step one. Step two would be after a week or two, you put another bed in his room, perhaps right next to him. You sleep in there. Step three is, a couple of weeks later, you move the bed away from him. You're still in his room, but you're not having physical contact with him. You are now on the other side of the room, okay? And he will stay asleep. Step four is you literally put your bed close to the door. Okay, that's great. Step five is you put your bed in the hallway right outside his room. Okay. And you gradually do this until you are back in your room. Okay, and you do this very, very slowly. Now, the first time when you exit his room, which is in the hallway outside, you want to make sure that there's other pleasant things in his room. Okay, for instance, I don't know his age, so, you know, a stuffed animal, perhaps musical stuff, something that he likes. You could, if he attempts to come out, you can leave the door open, but make sure, and stop walking him back, because at this point you'll be in your bed, right? And he'll come over to you, and you'll see him, and you'll say, just go back to bed. You can leave the door open. So this will be a very gradual phase, but he'll learn to stay in his bed. Now, and don't forget, every step, as you want to teach it, you're rewarding it, right? Okay. So if he stays in his bed, you give him a major reinforcer that he doesn't otherwise get during the day. And so you condition and you shape the behavior this way, okay? And that's pretty self-explanatory now. Now, the issue of the TV being on, you know, a lot of people like to have the TV on. Why don't you put the TV on a sleep timer? I mean, most TVs have sleep timer now, where you can basically put it on and it will switch off after 15, 10, 30, whatever it is you want for him. And actually do put a night light in the room. I don't think a night light is very disturbing. Most people are accustomed to sleeping with a night light. Play with what's in his environment until you find the most appropriate environment for him. One thing I would suggest, which really, really works for sleep, is air purifier machine, because they produce white noise. And white noise is fantastic. It blocks sudden other noises so that you essentially just hear a very kind of continuous humming sound all night, and people sleep very much better with white noise. So that's something that would help keep him asleep as well. But really, this is about coming to you. And you know, a lot of times we forget that all kids do this behavior when they're very young. Yeah. But you know, after a while, they realize it is not okay to come to the parents' bed, and they stop. Now, let me pose a question to you, and again, I don't know how old he is, but if he was typically developing, how would you handle it? You wouldn't let him come to your room. After a certain point, with our typically developing kids, we simply prohibit it. Yeah. We just tell them, no, stay in your own bed. You have to stay. But with our kids who are on the spectrum, either we think it's too difficult to explain it to them, or we're afraid of injuring them in some way or another. And the truth is, you need to stop allowing him to come to your room, because he will get that message. It's just that for some reason we haven't actually made the message clear. And in order to be gentle about it, you're going to make the message incremental.
Okay. And I just want to add that if you're looking for a really cool nightlight, we've had the folks from Uncle Milton Toys on the show 2 different times. You can find those videos. One of the things they specialize in are really cool, really interactive nightlights. Jem still has the one that's the moon in my room. Yeah. They're very inexpensive, and they're educational, because it comes with a remote for the nightlight that you can click through the phases of the moon, which is great because when it's a full moon, it's really bright. You can go to one of the waxing or waning or gibbous, or I don't know all those things anymore, but I used to when we first got this. And they can set it themselves, or you can set it with them. And if your child isn't into moons, they have rockets, they have flowers for girls now, they have vines that can go different places. They even have them with noises.
I know, they're so nice. The moon, I think, is a National Geographic product. It actually, they have a National Geo as well. It's a very cool thing. My kids had it too. And I'm sure all these other ones. And actually, that's kind of an important thing. Like, get something that your child really likes. Yeah. Again, depending on their age. I mean, another simple thing I used to do with my kids is you can buy these stars that are glow in the dark. Yes. And put them all over the ceiling and turn the light on an hour before they go to sleep. And then when you turn it off, there'll be light. Yeah. And it will gradually dissipate throughout the night.
Jem did not have his own room until he was 6. Which is way too late, but I can tell you that he didn't want to go to his room to sleep, but when we put the moon in and put the reflective stars, he was all about wanting to be in his room so that he could have his moonlight and be in there. Yeah. So, okay, we're going to move on to the next question. My 10-year-old makes loud noises constantly, like a car alarm, screeching noises. He makes them when he's waiting, when he's playing, all the time. He really enjoys making them, but it drives me crazy. Any help is great.
Oh gosh, it's so hard. You know, parents with kids with ASD have so many little things they deal with, and when I do this show, it often reminds me, because we have so many parents from all over the world who remind me that it's so much harder when you don't have a team of therapists. You know, I'm so used to, we will help that, we'll take care of that, you know, we do these things. It's very, very difficult. This is one of those things where I'm sure that you try to deal with it when it occurs. And you will ultimately get to that point, and you will, of course, have to deal with it every single time that it occurs. But you need a program that is specifically intended to work on this issue separately. So in other words, what I'm saying is it's kind of like you need a class time. You need a specific time every day that you work on this issue diligently, as if it was you're trying to teach him some reading or something, you know, so it's a very specific time that you work on this. And I think the best way to do this is that you actually, what we call get it under SD control, which means you ask him to make the noise. So you'll say, make a car alarm noise. And when he does, you'll turn away. And that's that. Mm-hmm. And then you'll ask him to sit quietly with a timer. And when he's quiet, you give him a reward. Ah. So basically, he'll understand the difference between making noise. Making noise becomes conditioned to something that loses your attention. Okay. And being quiet gets conditioned to something that gets reward. Then during the course of the day, when this type of thing happens, even just pulling out the timer will become an SD, because now you've used the timer with the quiet phase. So now actually when he sees the timer, he'll know he's supposed to stay quiet, in which case you'll give him a reward. Does that make sense?
It does. This is the first time that I knew what getting something under SD control meant.
Means. So getting something under SD control is often used when we say, you take a negative behavior, and your initial reaction to this negative behavior is to just like either extinguish it, put it on extinction, or punish it, or redirect it, or whatever it is. But sometimes it's a matter of what the child, you can control it. Mm-hmm. If you have control of it, and you don't have control of these behaviors right now. Right. So the way to get control over it is to make the child understand this is in a very simple equation, like sitting right in front of him. This is not going to get my reward. This is going to get my reward. And right now it isn't clear to him.
Okay. Love it.
And also, can I just note that it's all about noises for him? So alarm, screeching noises. Mm-hmm. So somewhere he has obviously heard alarm or screeching noises, and he's for some reason enjoying doing that. So you have to find out kind of, so in my mind, the function of this is either he likes the sound that he produces, or he enjoys annoying you. So you must not get annoyed. You must ignore it. Right. And the only thing you do when these sounds come out is to perhaps pull out your timer, which should act as a stimulus for him to be silent. And you must reward, this is also, I'm thinking of so many different interventions, is you must reward when he's silent at any time. You must reward him being silent. Yeah. That's very, very important. Now let's find out, assuming he likes to make these noises, and I don't know his age either, get him something
10.
that's
He's
10.
Yeah.
So you might want to get some toys that make the sound that would allow him to actually generate that sound during playtime. In other words, you're actually giving him a certain other time to stimulate himself with these sounds appropriately. You might want to get him headphones, which allows him then to actually listen to things like music that has siren noises or alarm noises or that kind of thing. Direct it into something functional adaptive, or something where he can, on an ongoing basis, play, let's say, with that need.
For Jem, it was singing.
Right. Singing is so easy because it's such an adaptive thing.
Yeah.
Alarms and sirens, not so adaptive unless he wants to actually go into the, first rescue business.
Right. Well, what I mean is he used to make the siren noises. He used to make
see.
the high-pitched noises, and one of the things, there were a lot of things that helped, but one of them that really
was music.
helped was joining choir and singing and having that outlet. It gave him an opportunity to make sounds in a positive way.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And see, that is actually really important, because you've kind of replacing it with something. Always keep this in mind: when you don't replace a behavior with some other behavior that has the same function, a new behavior will crop up. And you won't always like the new behavior. The new behavior might be worse.
But okay, that's all good. Hello, Dr. Granpeesheh. How can I help my son make an important decision like whether or not he likes a school when he lacks decision-making skills? He changes his mind all the time and has processing issues. I was thinking maybe a pros and cons list to help him. Any other ideas?
You know, I wish I knew the age of this child, because sometimes we want to teach our kids things that are maybe a little bit too advanced for them. You know, he does not have to make these decisions right now, and perhaps it's what you're expecting is a little bit too much. Certainly you can do pro and cons lists. Certainly you can teach, I mean, you should be teaching him various other things about processing, decision making, choices, all those types of things. And if you're interested, there is a very good lesson in skills which is called choices, and it begins with teaching the individual to make a choice, which is easy, between a good and a bad thing, and then you know, you eventually get to choosing between two good things by making lists of each one's pros and cons. So certainly you can do that, but you know, honestly, most children don't like school unless they connect with other children. No one, very few, let's just put it, not no one, but very, very few people like school just because they're learning there. You know, we start to like education much later in our lives, not when we're school age. So school has to be fun for other reasons, and that's very, very important. That most of our kids don't like school because they don't connect to other kids and they don't have a social group. And even when they have a social group, for them it's more work than enjoyable. It's not really a reinforcer. So you need to find something in school that's reinforcing for your child, and you need to increase that. Or you need to reinforce your child right after they complete school every day. In other words, you just need to tag a reinforcer in here and find out what you can put in. For some kids it's athletics, for some kids, as I said, it's social, for some kids it's what they wear and showing that off. For some kids it's a teacher who they're very connected to. You know, it's different things for different kids. For some kids it is getting a good grade. So I don't know, it's a matter of, you have to look and see what portion of the day you might be able to make it reinforcing. And honestly, more likely than not, you won't find something reinforcing for him yet, him or her, and so him. And then, so I think what you need to do is just give him a major reinforcer every day after school, right after when you pick him up, so that he realizes just attending school will be reinforced.
Okay. Moving on to the next question. Hi, Shannon. This question is for Dr. G. I just received the book, the cards book, in the mail yesterday, and I just want to say it's massive. LOL. I want to know if I can use this book to teach my son conversation. He has tons of language and a lot of spontaneous too, but his conversation is almost non-existing. He's 4 years, 10 months. We're in New Jersey. We don't have ABA because my husband's insurance is self-funded. It's horrible. I never thought I would envy a parent for being able to provide their special needs kid with therapy. And she makes a sad face. Also, how can I teach him to be more social? He's aware of other kids, but just does not look interested in them. But if they have something like food or a toy that he likes, he wants to go take it from them. He's considered high functioning. I just want him to at least say hi without being prompted, or to acknowledge a kid his age to play with him. Do you see this often, where a kid has a lot of language and high functioning, but social skills are so poor? He scores at 24 to 30 months for social skills, so he's really delayed for a kid who will be 5 soon. He's a really smart little boy. He loves letters so much, and he scored at 5 years, 6 months for academics. So definitely really smart. Thanks so much, and God bless. Tears your heart up.
It does tear your heart up. This is the, oh my God, how do we, instead of focusing on all these little things, I have to figure out a way where you can get help for him, because you need therapy, he needs ABA, and he needs intensive ABA, especially if he's a little guy who likes letters and stuff. That means he's might be hyperlexic, and my hyperlexic kids tend to do so well with appropriate therapy. So please, we have to focus more on ways that you can actually get him funding and therapy. So here are some ways, and honestly, that's what you need to focus on. I understand that you're currently frustrated, so I'll give you some ways that you can currently receive some immediate help. So here's 2 things that you can do. One is, you will need to learn, so I want to talk about IBT and skills.
Yes.
You'll need to learn some techniques, ABA techniques. So the source for that is Institute for Behavioral Training, which is ibehavioraltraining.com. Please go there. The modules on ibehavioraltraining.com are very inexpensive. if you really are having a hard time with even paying for those modules, write back into Shannon and I will give you a grant for that so that you can access the parent modules and learn the parent modules. I really would recommend that highly, because that will teach you the answer to many of the things you've asked here, because once you know the techniques, it's very easy to figure out how to reduce challenging behavior. Second thing is, if you can find the time, go to Skills, which is skillsforautism.com. Shannon, are you still doing those things where you help parents acclimate to skills, or do you have time?
Yeah, I still need to. We're making short little videos, but I can take the time with a parent to walk them through it. I need to do that. I said I would, and I will.
It's a little difficult. If you can get on skills, it's a little initially becoming familiar with skills, because it's such a full website. It's very difficult. It's kind of intimidates parents a little bit. But what it is you start with a questionnaire. It's just an index assessment questions, and your child's almost 5, so you'll receive several hours worth of questions. So spend a week or 2 doing this. Spend 20 minutes here, an hour there, wherever you have time, and you'll be asked questions about him, and you'll just say yes or no. And the questions are, can he do this? Yes or no. And if you don't understand the questions, because some of them are technical, you look at the example, and the example is pretty easy to see. So you'll just answer those questions, and you will easily be able to assess what his needs are to begin with, in detail. And once you've done that, everything you said he cannot do will then be linked to a lesson, to a program area. And then the lessons are kind of listed in order of what exactly you teach and how. And if you've done the IBT training, you'll understand all the language on skills very, very well. And then it's a matter of actually carrying out the lessons. Now, initially you could hire people in the neighborhood or get students from high school, pay them minimum wage, and show them how to do these lessons, and because you will be trained. In fact, have them watch the IBT modules if you like. Family members can help anyone. And you get this process going. You put together, let's say, a 20-hour program for him where he's getting 4 hours of direct sit-down therapy a day. You'll see huge, huge increases as long as the people doing it are consistent and well-trained, which, we're offering that to you in IBT and Skills. Skills will put together your lesson plan and your programs. IBT will give you the techniques. So that's kind of the short or the easy, or like the last thing, the last resort, so to speak. But it's something you could do right now because the cost involved is very minimal. Even Skills right now is something around $70-something a month. So it's not that costly, really. Yeah. So while you're doing that, though, I would suggest that you look into your Medicaid funding in the state of New Jersey, see if you're eligible for that. I don't know if you have other sources of funding where you can perhaps look at getting other insurance coverage or Department of Developmental Services type coverage. You can certainly apply for an ACT grant, which is ACT Today, Autism Care and Treatment Grant. That won't cover you very long because the ABA gets to be pretty expensive, but it might cover you for a while if you have therapists who you've hired yourself, move to another state. I mean, it becomes kind of important, to be honest with you, and I know it's difficult to say things like that because you're depending on your husband's job. Have your husband talk to the HR director or department of his job. Because most organizations that are self-funded are larger organizations, and honestly, sometimes it just takes a few people to push the HR department and they add the autism benefit. So, try for that. There's a lot of different types of things you can try. Anything
Absolutely.
I left out, Shannon?
No, I think that covers it. I just want to say, because you wrote it and first said about the book, so to just go through and say in terms of, okay, you've got the book, and the book is going to explain to you the overreaching ideas of how this is going to work. And it's so beneficial to have that idea of this is how this works.
And the curriculum is in the back of the book.
Yes.
But it's not detailed. It just lists areas. And if you want the detail, like for instance, you look and you see something like teaching him, I don't know, conversational skills. That detail is in Skills.
Yes. So but the book is going to give you the overreaching idea of this is how you get it done. IBT is going to give you all the training so that you understand how to do it. And right now that's free. You don't even need a grant for it if you register in the next 2 days.
Right, that's
you
true.
You can get that for free right now, get the whole thing and spend the next 3 months watching those modules. So IBT explains and trains you so that you're able to do it. And then Skills does so many things. It gives you all the curriculum. It gives you the assessment so that you can see exactly where your child is and where you need to get to. And then it helps you to track everything so that you can see that what you're doing is working.
Right.
So those 3 things together, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. But if you're up to it, you have the power to have that intervention yourself. You want to get volunteers to help you, you can do it. And now if you do that while you're getting your insurance company to do it, you'll be so far ahead of the game. If you need, I am so happy always to help you to figure out the skills portion of it and anything else that you need to do. You guys have my email, s.penrod@autism-live.com. But you can do this.
You can certainly do it. And I would say you can do a very good job if you dedicate something like 1 to 2 hours a day yourself. Maybe 1 hour a day is sufficient. 5 hours a week, 6 hours a week, you'll get a good program going for him. So think about how little time, what a small amount of time that is that you need to put into this.
And the other thing that I will say about New Jersey is that it's a difficult state for a lot of different reasons, right? But there are some good things in New Jersey, and there is quite a network of parents in New Jersey.
Correct.
There is a hotline that you can call that's manned 24 hours a day, I believe 7 days a week, that there is a parent that can help you to figure out what other resources, and there are other funding resources there. Email me so I can connect you with a parent there so you can start that process.
And you know, the other thing is that if you go to his school, like one of the things that we're doing recently is that our skills company or group, they're providing skills access to schools. And Act Today, our nonprofit, is helping fund that, because we realize that giving skills to whole schools or school districts even is much more cost effective. We're hitting many more children that way. So one of the things you should do is also talk with your school and try to get them to get on board with skills. Now they can either purchase skills for the school, which they will call in, and we will give them very, very low rates. We negotiate with schools and allow them to have low rates because we really want to get numerous kids in the system. Or if your school doesn't have the funds for it, then request a grant for skills for your school from Act Today. And Act Today's information is online as well. Just look up Autism Care and Treatment Today or Act Today, and you'll see it.
Yeah, act-today.org is what will get you there. Okay, I'm moving on to a question about colors. I have a student who, this is from a teacher, who isn't retaining when we work on, for example, colors. We will work on 2 colors. I will ask him to touch blue. He will get it until I introduce another and then sticks with that color. It's just not sticking. How can we get it to stick?
Oh,
it's a great question, right?
It's a great question, and I think it's a teacher, and I love that it's a teacher writing into us. Bless you. Please tell other teachers to learn these techniques. So what you're referring to is what we call win, stay, lose, shift. That's a process. Win, stay, lose, shift. And what it means is that when we win, we stay on whatever response we just gave. When we lose, we shift our response. So essentially, the child is learning touch blue. And it's a discrimination problem, so you'll have to go through a certain series of steps in order to teach him to better discriminate. And I don't know exactly how you're doing it, but this is how we do it. So first we teach the child one stimulus, which is, in this case, let's say red. Right? You want to teach him red and blue. So the way that you do it is you will teach him red, and you'll teach him receptively. So you'll have a picture like this, you know, a piece of paper like this that's red. You put it down, and you'll say, touch red. And so the child will be prompted to master that and touch red, and that's it. You're just doing it receptive all completely first, then you'll do expressive later where you'll ask him what color. But right now you're just doing receptive because you're trying to teach the concept of discriminating between 2. So you'll just say touch red, and the child will touch red, and that's that. And then you've mastered that. Now you bring in another item, a distractor. So initially you would bring in something that's kind of different looking perhaps, like a pen or something. And you just put that on the table, so it's not just a blank table, it's now red with something else there. So you just touch red, and you should rotate their positions and so on, so you're sure that the child is really tuned into that one stimulus. Now you will bring in another color card, something else like green or black. Black is a good one, just something else, right? And you just put that now, so let's say this is the other color card. And so you essentially will now put the red down, and you put two things down. You'll never ask for this one. You'll never say, touch whatever this is. All you'll do is you just keep with red. So you'll say, touch red. Great. And you'll have touch red. And if he makes a mistake and starts going to the new one, then you position it away from him. So you'll position, when you put them down, you'll position the red one closer so it's easier. And then you'll gradually bring in the one that's not red, right? Mm-hmm. Essentially, you'll play with that until he's always picking red. Okay, great. Now you put red away, and you do the entire same sequence that I said with blue. Okay, so now you have blue. This is blue. And so now you will start the whole thing again. So it's touch blue on its own. And then you'll have touch blue with some other distractor on the table. Then you'll have touch blue with some other color, the black probably, or something else that you were using, and you rotate it. And now finally you'll bring red back together with blue. And this will be the first test of real discrimination. Now you'll bring red back, and he will keep responding to blue because that's the last one you brought in. But now you'll rotate, you'll go back to red. You might have to do red with black again. We don't know. But you will eventually get to the point where he'll be able to touch red and touch blue. You just need to do it in those phases. Okay. We call it 7 steps, but just because it helps the child identify and discriminate a lot better. Okay. Now that's the general technique of teaching discrimination training. It goes from that basic first mass trial to random rotation, and that's how you get 7 steps. However, there's other things you can do to prompt this, right? You can put the one that you want him to say closer to him. That's the positional prompt. You can look at the one he's supposed to. That's a, there's so many different ways you can prompt. If he's a reader, you can actually put the word on there, red, blue. That sometimes helps our kids. So there's other ways that you can prompt discrimination. Once you have the first 2 targets discriminated, then you can add additional targets in the same process.
But patience and opportunities.
And these steps.
Yes.
The steps actually are very important.
Okay. And of course, it occurs to me that Camp Discovery is an app that does this and utilizes these techniques, and that they could teach it, and then when it's having downtime, hand the app to the child, and it will
Absolutely, or not even, because I think we already have colors on Camp Discovery. Yeah. So please do, one of the things you should do is go on Camp Discovery, which you can get through the iTunes library.
Yes.
And it's a series of games we've designed with this discrimination training in place. Which is so brilliant. And so just, go to the colors section of Camp Discovery and have him learn it that way too.
And it literally does all the things that you were talking about. If they continue to get it wrong, it will shrink the distractor and put it further away. It does all of those things, and it makes the noises that they like when they get it right. Great way to do it.
And then once you've done all of this, you will now expressively teach each concept, of course, which is what is it, what color red, what color blue, and so on. The other thing that I wanted to say is, I forgot, because there's something else with that you can, I'm sure that there's a module on IBT for discrimination training.
Yes.
They're not going to apply it only to colors, obviously. This is a process that you use for anything receptive that you want to teach, anything. You could use it for labels, for actions, for object, whatever it is. So you always go through these discrimination training steps, and you can find that module on the IBT website. So it goes through what I just said very slowly and shows you visuals of how to do that as well.
Okay, moving on to the next question. Hi, Shannon and Dr. Doreen. I love watching your show. It's very informational. I have a son who will be turning 3 in June. He has been receiving 30 hours of ABA since 7 months. He is extremely obsessed with alphabets and numbers. He knows all his alphabets, knows numerous sight words, and can decode 3 to 4 novel words. He knows numbers over 100 and can read them. This is someone who's not yet 3. He has some language. He can independently request for things he wants and places that he wants to go and can request help. He is interested in showing stuff to me, his dad and his teachers, but not to anyone else. He can also describe things when asked, like, what do you see? He could say, I see a bird flying in the sky. He is non-conversational, but answers questions when asked. Our biggest concern at the moment is his verbal stimming. He is singing rhymes or songs, or he is just humming most of the day, and when he does that, it's very difficult to get his attention. How do we deal with this? And thanks for all your help.
Wow. So, he sounds like he's very, very intelligent and has a visual memory. So this is clearly the type of child that's hyperlexic, and hyperlexia is actually wonderful. It also is really very clear to me from the description you've given me that he's Asperger's type ASD. He's not typical ASD. His functioning level will always be advanced academically, and anything that he can memorize will be easy for him. Anything that he cannot memorize, which is abstract and constantly changing, will be difficult, and you will need to focus on teaching him appropriate social behavior. He will be very rule governed. So remember that the child like this will always be able to manage making things happen as long as he's given a rule. One rule could perhaps be singing. So what you do is you will allow him, you will set particular time frames. I'm sure if he's as intelligent as you say here, he will have no problem learning time, where you can just show him on a digital clock, on a digital watch, when it's like, let's say 2 p.m. or 1 a.m., whatever times you decide. And you say from this time to this time, or you could set a timer and say while the timer is on, you can sing, hum, do whatever you want to do. When it's off, or when it's blue or red, whatever, some signal, you can't. You can even set up like some sort of a flag system, where if you have a green flag, he can sing and hum. When you have a red flag, he can't. And trust me, he will get that and he will stop. It's really, sometimes it's as simple as just that, and not necessarily, the child isn't necessarily able to understand why yet, but once you put the rule in place, they get the sort of the order of things. Now, depending, and he's not even 3, so he's so little, he's such a little guy. And you may want, if he's really able to comprehend, I guess, you may want to explain that when you hum, I can't hear. So perhaps model it for him. And as he's doing something of interest, sing loudly next to him and say, that's how I feel. It really give him your perspective. See, the problem with our kids who have Asperger's type ASD is that they're not able to see your perspective. They don't really understand why it bothers you that they're singing or humming. They don't realize that maybe you can't hear anything else. So all of those things are things to take into consideration. I'm very curious, how did you know to start intervention at 7 months? Because he's so high functioning, what were the red flags? Let us know, because that's very interesting for me.
It is. It's very interesting. All right, I'm going to move on to another question, or should we take a quick break and come back and do
I'm fine.
Okay, so we're moving on. Hi, Shannon and Dr. Doreen. Thank you for doing this show. I've learned so much from your advice. I'm writing from Miami, Florida. My 8-year-old will be taking the SAT next year. She is in a pull-out resource program and doing better every day. She always scores lower than what I know she can do on standardized testings. My question is, how do I request for one-on-one testing accommodation on her upcoming IEP? What are my options if the school says no? I'm convinced she will benefit from it, and she has a diagnosis of ASD. You guys are fantastic. We think you're fantastic,
so nice.
too.
Thank you so much. It's unlikely that they won't agree to an accommodation. Accommodations are very easy to get in IEPs. I would suggest that you go to a psychologist who can do educational testing. This is really important, because if you can get some testing that shows the areas that your child's having difficulty in learning, like it could be memory, it could be fluency. One of the very, very important things that we never think of is processing speed. If they do a test of intelligence, an IQ test, like a Wechsler, how old is this child?
8.
8 years old, so it would be the WISC, WISC, which is the Wechsler Intelligence Scale for Children. If you do that test, it'll give you a fantastic, it's a really good version right now. It'll give you a very good measure of your child's processing speed. That is key to being able to finish things within a certain time frame. So that'll be very, very valid data to show the IEP and say, my child needs accommodation. And I don't know if it's a one-on-one testing accommodation that's enough. One-on-one being you can take the child to another room privately and she can take, that might be enough. She might be having test anxiety, which would then indicate she'll do well one-on-one. Or you might need additional time. I mean, that's another thing you can request. So there's a lot of things you can request for accommodation. An educational psychologist will be able to help you with this.
Yeah, and just keep in mind that the schools want to give you accommodations for those standardized testings because it makes a difference for them. But when it gets time to the standardized testing, you can only implement the interventions that were implemented on the other testing. You can't change something just for the standardized testing. So ask for what you want, and if you've already got resource services, it should be an easy ask, but then make sure that the teacher is implementing what you want for the standardized testing throughout the year. Because they're not supposed to change anything just for the standardized testing, because that can throw our kids off.
Right.
So just be aware of that, but it shouldn't be very difficult. If they say no, you have lots of recourse.
Yes,
you can say,
do.
I'm not signing the IEP.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
I don't think you're going to have a problem.
I don't
with
think so either. I agree, and I think they'll give her additional time, and they'll also give. I mean, I can't.
They have a list of things that they'll say. Do you think you want this? Do you think you need this? Usually, they're all, that doesn't cost them anything. They're happy to offer that up to make you happy, right? We have time for one more quick question. Won't be enough time to talk about all the things we want to with this, but hello, Dr. Doreen and Shannon. I have a question. My daughter, 8, who has enough language to be in mainstream but still needs help in social/language and perspective, is passing gas in front of people because she doesn't know that it's not polite to do in front of people, and she doesn't even realize that situation. But she's coming home every day saying, "You stink," when she passes gas here. So that tells us some kids said that in class, or she heard that somewhere, and that's okay, but we want to shape that behavior. How can we do that? She's smart, but also in the past tends to do attention-seeking behaviors, so I don't want to do this wrong. Please help us. We love you, and thank you so much. We love you too.
Okay, so a couple of things. So I'm glad you rose back in because you were one of our questions.
Yes.
And we were trying to get to your question. I just needed a little bit more time, and I was telling Shannon that this is one of those things where I wish I had much more time with the parent. So, you know, I'm not sure that you're going to be able to teach her the concept of being polite, of things that are polite at this point. That's a little bit advanced. What you're going to try to shoot for is just this is what you're going to try to teach her is that passing gas in public makes other kids not want to hang out with you. So that's going to be your goal. Like, in other words, you're going to want to say, you're going to want to teach your child that if you like to play with other kids, there will be no passing gas. If you pass gas, nobody wants to play with you. Now, it's very hard for me to address this because I really don't know how much she understands at this point. So just going back to bare behavioral intervention, let's start there and say passing gas is bad, not passing gas is good. It always very simple division there. So what you have to do is the periods of time that she is not passing gas, you reward her. The period when she passes gas, and is it only in school or is it always in public?
No, she's doing it at home too.
Yeah, so when she passes gas, you need to somehow take something away. You obviously don't want to get all freaked out about it because you don't want to give negative attention, but you can very simply set up a token system for her if she understands that, where she earns tokens for each hour that there is no passing of gas, and she loses tokens whenever she does. So, and if she earns enough tokens, let's say I don't know how many hours a day you can control. You can actually even have the teacher monitor this at school as well. Do we know what kind of placement it is?
We know that she mainstreamed.
Oh, it's mainstream.
Yeah.
So I don't know if she has an aide. You might not want to deal with it initially at school. First deal with it at home and then see if you can get someone to implement it at school. Perhaps talk to the resource person at school. The idea, the best is to be able to deal with every hour, every waking hour. If you were able to have someone monitor it because you're not with her every waking hour, or you could start it on a Friday or something and see if you can manage to teach it through the weekend, because it's a pretty simple thing. Every hour that she doesn't pass gas, she gets a reward. It could be even a shorter duration. In other words, if she's actually passing gas every hour,
right,
you might want to capture every 30 minutes and say every 30 minutes that she's not passing gas, you get a token. Put a physical sticker on this thing that shows you didn't. And then have her also have a visual of what she's going to earn if she has enough of those items.
Are we also teaching her to go into the restroom or to go someplace else to do it and rewarding that?
Right. So let's get to that in a minute.
Okay, sorry.
So sure. So setting up a token system is one of the hardest things in ABA. To make a token system effective, it is incredibly difficult. So you need to go to the IBT website and look up token economy, because token economy has so many features that are critical. For instance, the weight of the object she can get to the number of things she gathers. All of this is very important in token economy, so please get some additional information there. Now, as Shannon said, you might want to allow her to pass gas in the bathroom, which is something that you certainly can do, and you can perhaps reward her for passing gas in the bathroom, direct her to go to the bathroom X number of times so that she knows she can go there and pass gas. And that's the way to redirect it. And finally, what I wanted to say is find out why she has so much gas. Like, that is the important thing, is that, you know, and if it's foul smelling, obviously there's something going on with her digestion. So I would actually look at what she's eating, and that's kind of important, because, you know, I'd much rather her pass gas in the bathroom than not and have stomach aches. Yeah. So please try to figure out what it is that's causing the gas, perhaps modify and change her diet a little bit so that she's actually able to process what she eats a little bit better. Make sure she's on the appropriate enzymes for digesting and breaking down food. Beano helps a lot of people with gas. But it does actually kind of break down the gas into smaller particles. Any kind of simethicone will do that. And so you can then, if that happens, you would teach her to go to the bathroom every hour. And that's another actually good way to do it, Shannon, is if you set her up on an hourly schedule of getting a reinforcer for not passing gas, or half hourly, whatever it may be, you might actually want her to walk over to the bathroom, whether she's in school or at home, and then get her reinforcer there. Being in the bathroom will prompt her, obviously, to pass gas, because she knows that's where she is allowed to.
Very cool.